First, navigate to the network settings in the main menu and press Enter. Once inside of the network settings, we are going to want to set the net type at the top using the +- key on your remote to read DHCP. This will allow your DVR to pick up a network address from your router automatically. This is the easiest way to configure your DVR for access over the network or internet. Once done, click on Menu and save the configuration. Once back at the Setup menu, press Menu again to return to the main menu, and Menu again to return to the live view of your cameras. We will allow this to sit for several minutes before going back into the menu, into Setup, and then click on Network. Notice that still it shows zeros next to the IP address, netmask, and gateway. This tells us that it still has not picked up an IP address. Return to the main menu, and then come back in a few more minutes. Once it has picked up the IP address from your router, then it will show the IP address, netmask, and gateway. We're going to navigate up to the net type and change it once again to static IP. This time it will keep the new network address that it got from your router. Write down the IP address that your DVR is on. By changing it to a static IP address, it will always remain at this IP address so that you can always access it from your local area network. Also take note of the gateway address, as you will need to use this later on in order to configure your router for remote access over the internet. Next, navigate down. If you have a dynamic IP internet connection, you can use the DDNS type down below to select your DDNS provider from the list. These are outside companies that offer DDNS services for dynamic IP internet connections, such as DynDNS or NoIP.com. Either one of these services are supported by this standalone DVR. For this example, we will use NoIP.com. Navigate down below to the URL, and this is where you will type in the URL that you registered with NoIP.com. We will use the example mydns.no-ip.com. If that were the URL that we registered with NoIP, then we would enter it here using the remote control. Down below that, you can enter your DDNS username. In the case of NoIP, this requires a full email address as your username, as they will send you a link to activate your account. Down below that, you will enter the password that you entered on the NoIP site when you registered your domain. Once this is complete, now the DVR will be able to update NoIP's server with what your current IP address is, so that when you're accessing remotely, you can use the URL that you entered here, and it will always point towards the internet connection. Navigate back up to the top, and now you can configure email settings if you want your DVR to be able to email you on motion or video loss alerts. At the top, you would enter in the SMTP server for your email provider. For this example, we have used smtp.yahoo.com. You can find this information from your email provider. It will be listed on one of their web pages because it will be the same information that you would use for setting up Outlook or Outlook Express to pick up your email. Down below the SMTP server information, you will find the checkbox for authentication. This setting will be required for most SMTP email servers. Down below that, you will find username and password. The username and password will be the username and password that you use for logging in to your email if you go through your email provider's web page. If you shut off authentication, then it will ignore the username and password. This is only to be used with SMTP servers that authenticate by IP address only. After completing the above information, now move down to Mail From. This will be the complete email address that you would be sending email from. In the case of our example here, we have used myname@yahoo.com, which sends through the SMTP server that we have listed above. In the mail to, you can put the same email address again if you want to send from yourself to yourself to get the alerts. You can also add additional email addresses in the number 2 through 5 below. At the bottom for attachment, you can set it to NA if you do not want to attach a picture, original picture for a full-size picture, or QSIF if you want a smaller version of the picture. Then press Menu to return to the main network settings screen. Next, you can navigate over to the ADV menu and press Enter. This is for advanced users only. The Advanced Network Setup will allow advanced users to change the control, data, and HTTP ports of the DVR. Back at the main network setup, we now want to apply all of our new settings to this DVR. Press Menu and click Enter to save the configuration. It will show us that the network settings have succeeded and once again give you the IP address and the gateway. Make sure you have these written down before pressing Enter or Escape to exit back to the main menu.